You're very welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by the OG crew this week of Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Guys, welcome along to the podcast. Mark, it's been a busy enough time in the football landscape side of things, but I'm pretty excited for this weekend with the Premier League and EFL Playoffs.
Yeah, great time of the year, isn't it, May, when it rolls around. I know there's often many games which don't mean a huge amount, but the big matches that matter are always around this time of the year. We've had two sort of titanic Champions League ties this midweek. Premier League is really hotting up at both ends of the table. And yeah, the EFL playoffs are always a special time. And thankfully, the Sky Sports have decided to sort of allow us, who are allowed permission from our other halves, if you like, to be able to watch every game because they've staggered the kickoffs. So we get to watch all the first legs, all the second legs, and then the playoff finals too. Special time of the year. Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, EFL playoffs, I think of Adrian Clarke. Adrian, it's a busy time of year.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, I was at Middlesbrough the other day for the game against Coventry, and that's going to be the playoff semi-final. And I'm going to be at that one as well. So I've become a bit of a Middlesbrough correspondent in recent weeks. But no, the playoffs are fantastic, and I won't be able to take my eyes off them. There's always great drama.
Yeah, and even just looking at the Championship playoffs, Luton, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Coventry, not a new team, but a team that hasn't been back in the Premier League for a few years, has gotten the bandwagon, Premier League bandwagon crew that will be watching the playoffs rather excited. And I just think that's a good thing. So we'll go to the 4 Premier League games we're going to cover first, because there's 4 pretty big ties still in the Premier League, and this weekend could be decisive enough. But I want to point you in the direction very quickly of the SBC Awards, and shout out to the guys. Matchbook Football Podcast and the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast have been nominated for Best Betting Podcast, and Matchbook itself has also been nominated for Best Betting Video, Best Betting Website, and Best Betting Exchange. You can find all details of voting in the description, or you can go to the website SBC Awards, and more information on that is available on Twitter. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys listening throughout the year, and any votes, no matter how small, are much appreciated for that. And also shout out to Mark O'Haire, who's nominated for 2 categories: Best Sport and Tipsters, I think, and then Best Sports Writer, Mark. So huge congrats. You have a habit of picking these awards up now and again.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly tough competition you're up against this year. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, proud, honoured to be nominated, and hopefully we get a few votes from the listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, guys, we appreciate you listening to the podcast. And my thanks to Mark, Adrian, and Miguel throughout the year on the football podcast. Let's hope we beat the horse racing crew this year of Tom Stanley, etc., who will be live at 4 o'clock later with myself behind the camera this time around. But we'll get straight into it because, as I said, 4 brilliant games of Premier League action. And we'll start at the Saturday 12:30. This could be a cracker and a raucous atmosphere at Ellen Road. It's Leeds United versus Newcastle. We'll take a look at the betting that we have at matchbook.com. And you can back Leeds and the 90-minute odds at 5.0, Newcastle 1.71. The draw is available at 4.4. Both teams to score, yes. Heavily favoured in this market at 1.68. No is 2.3. The Asian handicap line that gives Leeds a 3/4 of a goal start at over even money, 2.08. And the goal line for this game is 2.5. But that's shaded a good bit towards the over. So, look, Mark, I'll throw this over to you in this one, and in conscious of the selection you picked, but did you see anything in that last 10, 15 minutes in particular from Big Sam's Leeds side to tell you they can get something out of this game today or on Saturday?
Well, yeah, I mean, answer to your question, yes, but I'd flip it around and say it waited to the last 10, 15 minutes, and, you know, not ideal really when you think about the previous 70 when Leeds didn't do a huge amount, really. They almost kind of set up, accepted defeat at the Etihad. They sat very, very deep. They left Patrick Bamford incredibly isolated. He had a poor game anyhow, but, you know, they just seemed quite happy not to have possession and just you know, just didn't see a huge amount there to suggest that they could improve. And yeah, the final 15 minutes and so was, I think, completely based on Rodrigo's goal. You know, he came off the bench, provided a bit of intense there, and we got a bit of a sort of scrappy goal. But and then it kind of gave City a bit of a shake-up, really, with the missed penalty too. And yeah, in the last 10 minutes, they did provide City with a few headaches. But if you think about the whole fixture, the final score says 2-1 Man City. City were way below par and probably could and should have scored 3 or 4 goals in that match anyhow, despite playing nowhere near their best. They just kind of did the job that was required, really. Will that final 15 minutes give Leeds renewed belief? Perhaps, but I think it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that they're going to be kind of world beaters after just a couple of weeks with Sam Allardyce. And I think the way in which the results went on Monday kind of just puts extra pressure on Leeds now, because they can't really afford to play for points, play for draws, really, which has always been kind of Sam Allardyce's way when he goes into a relegation scrapper. You know, he wants to sort out the defence first and foremost, and then kind of build on that. And that also often involves plenty of draws, plenty of points here and there, and sort of playing off low margin matches to pick up 3 points when they're able to. And I think just the way in which the Premier League table is right now, Leeds just are running out of time. They have to start playing for victories rather than draws, and that would be quite concerning. I think, I guess when they sort of played at their best against Man City was when the sort of chaos element came, and that's what we saw Leeds at their best under Bielsa, under Jesse Marsch as well. But also that can be quite concerning, I guess, if you want to be with Leeds too. So I still would fancy Newcastle. It's not a match I've got a particularly strong view on. I think it's really tricky because of the Allardyce factor, because of the way in which both teams are almost desperate for the points now, because Newcastle, after I felt they're a bit of a lock for the top four, losing that match against Arsenal last week and results elsewhere means, they are now in a bit of a precarious position as well. So they need to start, thinking about picking up points again. They have won 8 of the last 10, so it's not like they're in bad form, but I thought Isak was isolated and a bit wasted on the left last week. I thought Guimaraes probably had his worst game for quite some time as well. Jorginho did a really good job shackling him. But I also thought Newcastle's temperament was pretty poor in that second half. They lost their heads, and you need to be on the ball. You need to put your frustration to a side in these kind of fixtures. And I'm eager to see how Newcastle kind of react to that defeat. If you look at the numbers, they should really be winning this match. They've won 18 of 26 games against teams outside the top 4. They've won all 5 away trips at the bottom 5. They scored multiple goals in all 5 of those fixtures as well. When they have been going off odds-on favourites, they've been getting results and doing so quite consistently as well. So, I look at Leeds. It's hard to sort of back them with any confidence. They have lost 15 of 21 matches when priced up at 2-1 or bigger. That includes 4 of 6 at Ellen Road as well. So they tend to lose the matches they're expected to. But I look at the numbers here. That the handicap is high. I don't really want to back Newcastle to overcome a 1-goal handicap. The goal line is quite high too. Although I do expect goals in this match. 9 of Leeds' last 10 have featured 3 or more goals. 8 of Newcastle's last 10 have done similar. And then you think about the desperation of both teams for those points. It should really tend itself to be a decent watchable affair. But in terms of a betting heat, it's tricky. So I've just backed Newcastle to win and over 1.5 goals. They have scored at least twice in 8 of those 10 wins I mentioned. At least they've lost 6 of the last 8, and they've conceded twice or more in all defeats. So, yeah, it's not a strong selection, but I think it does boost the price from about 1.7 on Newcastle to win to odds against 2.02. But yeah, eager to hear how Adrian sees it.
Yeah, so am I, Adrian, because looking into this game, I put a lot of my thoughts on this game down to watching the hour of Sky Sports build-up of Big Sam propaganda ahead of the Man City versus Leeds game. And I've been bought in a little bit, but I just feel Ellen Road, tough place to go with that crowd. And I saw something in that Newcastle Arsenal game that frustrating with the fans and the players that maybe might potentially stumble over the line to this top 4. Do you see any chance for Leeds here going into this game?
I don't give them a big chance, if I'm being honest. They've won once against the top half team all season. That was 2-1 at Liverpool, which was a long time ago. Yeah, so it's not going to be easy for them. I think you're right about Newcastle. They did lose their heads. I think they tried to rough Arsenal up. I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to bully them, be aggressive, and they kind of got it wrong. Arsenal, proud of the way Arsenal handled it, if I'm honest. How does Big Sam approach it? Because as Mark says, they need goals, they need points. But his way is to sit back, soak up pressure, and then hurt them on the break. So it'll be a fascinating game to watch. I think there will be goals. Both teams to score has landed in 10 successive Leeds United matches, which is mad, really. They've lost 6 of their last 8. So where I'm landing here is Newcastle to win, because I think that they're the better side. Isak, although he was out on that left, he still looked very sharp to me, and he still caused a lot of problems. Newcastle still created chances. They hit the post, obviously, twice during the game. So I fancy Newcastle to win, but I also fancy both teams to score as well, because Leeds will be a little bit desperate. Newcastle are attack at the moment, and they've got goals in them. So, yeah, that's how I see it. And Newcastle aren't the clean sheet machine they were early on in the season. They conceded at Everton, they conceded at Villa, they conceded at West Ham, at Forest, at City and Bournemouth. And that's their recent run of away matches. So they haven't been keeping many shutouts. So for me, Newcastle will win, but I think they'll concede. So and the price is juicy. I've got to say at 3.3.
Okay, yeah, you can definitely see the argument for goals in this one. And look, given the price, Adrian, as a podcast selection, we will go for the Newcastle and both teams to score at 3.3. Mark is heading for Newcastle and over 1.5 goals, 2.02, boosting that win price from around 1.7 to over even. So, well, we're checking them out. And all those selections will be available on inside.matchbook.com. Going to Sunday now. This is the title race could potentially already be decided by the end of Sunday, but we'll take a look at the betting on Everton versus Manchester City. Everton 10.0 to win this match. Manchester City available at 1.38. The draw is 5.6. Both teams to score is favoured no in this market at 1.86, with yes available at 2.02. The Asian handicap line, Everton are getting 1.5 goal head start. More on that shortly. Manchester City minus 1.5 is 2.04, and the total is 2.5, shaded a good bit towards the over still. So, Adrian, take it away. I guess with this game, you can come at it from two angles. Everton's improved performance with a sensational result away to Brighton, particularly in that first half. But also Manchester City looked very shattered after Tuesday night. Now, obviously, take into account they will rotate the squad. But there's definitely a couple of small things to latch onto if you're an Everton fan.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, maybe this is wishful thinking on my part, but
and Arsenal
I do feel that there's a sniff of Everton taking something from the game. Now, do I expect it? Probably not. I think the Manchester City are obviously the most likely winners. But are they going to run away with this? Might they drop a point? It is, or 2 points rather. They are due an off day, aren't they? They're on this extraordinary run. That was a sapping game against Real Madrid. I was really impressed with the match. It would have took a lot out of them, and obviously that is the focus of their attention. Really, it's all about the Champions League. Because they'll fancy themselves in the final, won't they? If they can overcome Real Madrid. So, is there going to be a full focus on Everton? How many changes is he going to make? And what about Everton? They look better, don't they, in recent games? Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's returns made a big impact. He looked really sharp, as did McNeil. I thought he was great against Brighton. Doucouré, Iwobi's in good form. I think at Leicester and at Brighton, they've played some really entertaining stuff, actually, and they went for it. And obviously got their rewards with 4 points, 4 precious points. There are signs of life there, and I just wonder whether they might cause Manchester City a problem or two here. So I looked at that handicap and I thought Everton plus 1.5 goals feels backable, and I tell you why, because this bet lands if you're opposing Manchester City. It lands in 10 of 16 away matches for Manchester City, where either they haven't won or they've only won by 1 goal. Manchester City, 10 of 16. So, and I look at all the ingredients of the game, the desperation on Everton's part, the atmosphere, and I think it can be close. So that's my selection, but I'm always very, very wary when opposing Manchester City, especially in the form that they're in.
Yeah, Everton plus 1.5 goals, 1.88. But yeah, City go 2-0 up after 10 minutes. That bet's not winning. That's the end of it. Like, Mark, were you tempted at all with that Asian handicap line 1.5 before you landed on your selection?
Oh, 100%. I'll tell you why I haven't gone that way. It's all down to what happened on Monday night and beating Brighton 5-1. I think the shock factor has gone now, and I think that will just refocus Man City minds that this is not an easy fixture away to Goodison Park against Everton. They haven't had it easy against the Toffees in recent years. They've never really sort of blitzed Everton. I think they drew 1-1 in the reverse game at the Etihad. Last year, I think, was just a 1-0 win away at Everton. So it is a tricky place to go when that crowd gets behind that Everton team. So I just think the shock factor is massive. And I think the way in which Everton, having not just the way in which they win, but the fact that they got those 3 points against Brighton now puts them in a really strong position to try and survive. They're 2 points above the drop zone now. Obviously they need the points, but they might sort of refocus their own minds in terms of Sean Dyche's approach here, because what we've seen recently has been quite an exciting team. They've been quite direct, but even still it's worked and it's looked pretty good because Calvert-Lewin's made an enormous difference. They've played off him. They've utilised set pieces really well. They've played with pace. They've also got that sort of battling destroyer ability in the middle of the park. They've got intent, physicality, set pieces they've been very, very good at too. So, and City haven't been keeping many clean sheets either, but I just wonder whether that win will now dictate their approach, because they might now see a point being a really, really positive result. And where we see sort of Sean Dyche revert to kind of pragmatic men behind the ball, make life tough for Man City and squeeze what you can out of the game. Not necessarily a free hit, but in that sort of ballpark, if you like. And I think that would be a shame because Everton have been really good in terms of being front foot recently. They've had at least 10 shots in 12 of their last 13 Premier League games, averaging 13.38 shots compared to just 9.81 in their previous 22 fixtures. But I think that was down to a recognition that draws aren't good enough in this relegation battle. Wins are imperative, really. So just eager to see how Everton approach it. And I think that will kind of dictate what the best play is here. I was definitely considering Everton 1.5. It would have been my selection had they not won 5-1 away at Brighton. Now I'm going to play it slightly more pragmatically, if you like, backing City to win under 4.5 goals. 8 of the last 10 wins have arrived via this method. And yeah, you're right, there will be rotation, but you've got Foden and Mahrez probably coming in for Grealish. Bernardo potentially. They're not exactly, fielding. Yeah, there's not exactly a massive downgrade in terms of the players they'll bring into the side. And look, City haven't been hugely impressive in the last 2 Premier League games either. They have had eyes elsewhere. They've been quite grinding wins against Fulham and Leeds. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see something similar here and almost both bets land. But I think possibly the smartest play here would be to back Man City to win by exactly 1 goal. Otherwise, I think Adrian's on a decent angle here too. But I think Everton, I think we all agree Everton will make life tough.
Okay, yeah. Couple of plays there from the guys. Wouldn't be surprised to see all the selections come in too. Going to side with you again, Adrian, on Everton plus 1.5 goals, 1.88. I just think it's a fun
one. You've
got
the wishful thinking too.
Yeah, I have to at least will it into existence. Everton plus 1.5 goals. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Sunday, 2:00, 1.88. 10 of the selection. Yeah. We'll move on to a game that could matter a lot, maybe not as much perhaps, but we'll take a look at the betting. It's Arsenal versus Brighton, the big game on Sky Sports. The 4:30 main slot. Arsenal are available 1.77. Brighton 4.6 away to Arsenal. Draws available at 4.4. Both teams to score heavily favoured, 1.59 in this market. The Asian handicap line sees Brighton get a 3/4 of a goal head start at 1.94. And the goal line for this is very, very high, 3.5, but that is shaded a good bit towards the under. So, Mark, straight back to you on this one with Arsenal Brighton. Look, this game just screams goals, goals, goals. And I think no matter what way the game goes, if City don't get a result, then Arsenal will be trying to get the result and get goals. But if City do get the result, I think Arsenal will still be going out to put a big performance in. So whatever way that 2:00 game goes, I just see loads of goals in this game.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be very good entertainment, plenty of goals, bit of a shootout, really. Arsenal got their first clean sheet in 8 against Newcastle last week. And big credit for their performance in that game. They weren't intimidated by the bully tactics, showed real good temperament and character and confidence. But, they were slightly fortuitous to keep that clean sheet. As Adrian mentioned, that Woodwork got hit a couple of times. Back-to-back wins now, scoring goals freely. 11 of the last 13 Premier League games, they scored at least twice. I think Jorginho's made a big difference since coming into that central midfield area. Instead of Thomas Partey, it just allows Odegaard to play a bit more higher up and a bit more freedom in forward areas where he was dropping a little bit deeper during the lean spell. But Arsenal at the Emirates, as we know, when they're odds-on favourites, tend to do the business. And they've won 13 of 17 at home all season. They scored twice or more in 14 of those, and they've averaged 2.82 goals per game on their own at the Emirates this season, which is an incredible tally. We expect them to score. We probably expect them to score multiple goals, but it's a tricky game. However, I will back them to win, and I'm going to back them to see both teams to score in this match as well, because the price is lovely, 3.25. Now, Brighton have been tremendous fun. We know that. They scored in 28 of 33 league games. They scored in 15 of 16 away. They have only managed 2 clean sheets on their travels, one of which came under De Zerbi away at Bournemouth when they were quite fortunate to do so. And they have conceded at least twice in 5 of 6 trips to the top half. Their record against the best teams in the league isn't great. I think they've only beaten Man United home and away. They may have won one other game against the top 6, but but they were embarrassed against Everton. Their tactical plan was ruthlessly exposed. And if you look at their last couple of games away, yes, they were unfortunate not to get anything out of the Spurs game. But at Forest, I thought they dominated the first 45 minutes and then got a little bit overawed by the occasion in the second half. And something similar happened against Everton, really. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see Arsenal just swarm all over them, get the job done, but in a bit of a ding-dong fashion. And over 2.5 goals and BTTS has been the right selection in 13 of Arsenal's 17 games at the Emirates and 12 of Brighton's 16 away. Like, astonishing figures for that kind of market. Fully expecting a repeat here. But one of the stats that really kind of took me by surprise, actually, when doing research on Arsenal, they've kept 3 clean sheets at the Emirates this season. Not a great total. Only Southampton have kept fewer home clean sheets in the Premier League this season, and they've kept just one. So fully expect both teams to oblige here, but I will back Arsenal to get the job done and just boost the price up quite nicely.
Yeah, that Arsenal defence at home, Adrian, is definitely surprised. But I wanted to put to you the De Zerbi, widely reported after the Everton game that he locked his players in the dressing room for a huge amount of time. But then also in his post-match reports did state that you'll see a different Brighton away to Arsenal. What are your thoughts on that?
It's likely, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, you'd expect a reaction to that performance. That was a shocker, wasn't it? And some of the defending was awful. It was sort of a bit uncharacteristic. I know that they leak goals to Zerbi's team, but not in that manner. So I think that would have been a shock to the system, and they'll have worked very hard on it. But can they tame Arsenal? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm really not. A lot of games here at Emirates Stadium, that's where I am today, have seen Arsenal score 2, 3 or 4 goals, and that's where I see them score. I see them repeating that against Brighton here. It's difficult to argue against everything that Mark said, to be honest, about both teams scoring as well. Brighton will take it to Arsenal, and the team has looked vulnerable, down the sides in particular. You think of Ciso and Mitoma and all of these guys, they're all in pretty good form. It would not surprise me at all if Brighton scored. But I do fancy Arsenal. I think Arsenal, on the back of that Newcastle win, which I was really impressed with, I do think they can go on and win all 3 games now. Forest away and Wolves at home on the final day. Just to ask a question of Manchester City on that Brighton record away against top half teams, it's surprisingly unimpressive. Yeah, they've won 3, 2 of them against United. They've drawn 3. They've lost 8. So yeah, against the better sides, they have been outshot in these shootouts, or outgunned, if you like. And having 2 clean sheets on the road isn't great. It's not a great recipe ahead of a visit to Emirates Stadium. Brighton away games average 3.5 goals. Arsenal home games average 4.12 goals. So that's why the line's so high. So look, I'm going to offer up an alternative. I think Mark's case is very, very strong. The alternative, if you want to maybe play it a bit safer, is Arsenal and over 2.5 goals. It comes in at 2.48, but you do get a bit more bang for your buck with the both teams to score.
Okay, yeah. Well, podcast selection will go with Mark this time, and the bigger price. I'm so good for the bigger prices today, but Arsenal both teams to score 9-4 in all money, or 3.25. But I can't get over those couple of stats on average goals in Brighton away games and average goals in Arsenal home games. So 0-0 draw coming up at the Emirates on Sunday at 4:30. You just can't see it. We'll go to Monday Night Football. I put the markers on that. But we'll go to Monday Night Football for again a crucial game for Leicester, and it could even be a big game for Liverpool too, based on how results go over the weekend. It's Leicester City available in 90-minute markets, 5.5. Liverpool 1.62. The draw is available at 4.8. Both teams to score in this market is yes 1.62. No is 2.44. Leicester getting 1 goal head start on the Asian handicap line at 1.97, and the goal line for this is 2.5. Or sorry, 3.5. Gone to 3.5 now, but shaded a good bit towards the under. So, Adrian, we'll stick to you, or go back to you on this one with Liverpool. They've just been really, really good the last few weeks. I just think that's no better way of putting it than that.
Yeah, they just keep rattling off the wins, don't they? Obviously, a lot of goals before, but the last couple have been a little bit more cautious, and they've managed to grind them out, winning them deservedly, but only by 1 goal margins. I mean, this is a horrible fixture for Leicester, isn't it? Goodness me. I mean, Mark talked about this, what the results, how the results on Monday changed everything. I mean, it's now very hard to argue the case that Leicester go to relegation. I mean, they've got this game, Newcastle away. They end with a win at home to West. It could be done by then. They could be too far adrift. So this is massive, Leicester City. And the bottom line is they haven't looked like the team Paul's can. Yes, they beat Spurs 4-1. But that is absolute outlier. They're at home to City, 1-0 at home to Arsenal, 3-0 at home to Newcastle, 1 at home to Manchester United. Away from home, forget it. They've lost them all against the best team. So I can't see a way how they win this game. I really can't, even though they'll have to go for it. That seems to be the way, doesn't it, under Dean Smith? I think he realises I've inherited a bad defence here, so let's go out and try and outscore the opposition. It obviously backfired at Fulham, where they were abject. That was an embarrassing result for Leicester City. And even though I think there'll be a reaction to it, I mean, it won't be as terrible inside the defensive third. How can they be? this is Liverpool. And I just feel, I mean, I know quite a lot of Leicester fans, and there's a feeling among them that we're done, that it's over, we're going down. And if that's the mood inside the KP, I'm not saying it will be, but I think there will be a lot of fans inside that ground that are almost resigned to relegation now. This could get a little, the atmosphere might not be what you expect it to be, especially if Liverpool open the scoring. So but I've got back here, continue. Yeah, they're looking much. Trent Alexander-Arnold in that sort of hybrid inverted role looks really good. Salah's on fire. Yeah, Liverpool to win, just to boost up the price, over 1.5 goals, just to take the 1-0 equation. Think about Dave Smith's Leicester at the moment. You don't really think of 1-0ers, do you? Because they're creating so much, but also giving so much away. So yeah, Liverpool and over 1.5 for me.
Yeah, Liverpool over 1.5 goals, 1.82 currently on Matchbook. Mark, over to you on this one. And look, Leicester City fans were chanting, "You're not fit to wear the shirt" at half-time against Fulham. I watched that first half; they were diabolical. On Liverpool, Mark, how have you factored Trent going into midfield over the last few weeks into your thinking? Because what I've seen of Liverpool, I found him very impressive, linking the play and also getting back into the right back spot when needed.
Yeah, he's been fantastic in possession. You can see with his assist numbers and his goal contributions and creating chances, he's been brilliant, really. But I still think I wouldn't call him a liability, but I still think there are issues to be worked out defensively, particularly in the quick transitions. I think we saw when Nottingham Forest went to Anfield that Liverpool still can be caught out by those quick counter-attacks. And I've not been probably as impressed as you maybe with Liverpool's wins recently. 6 on the spin, as Adrian said, 5 of those were by 1-goal margins. And the Forest match wasn't completely convincing. The Spurs match was complete chaos. And then the Fulham and Brentford wins were pretty grinding and reliant on small margins, really. There were opportunities for their opponents to get something out of those games. West Ham was a tough workout, but they came out on the right side. But the Leeds match is probably more in keeping with what I expect from Monday night. And I'm not saying Liverpool go there and win 6-1, but they are obviously in the winning groove at the minute. Since the debacle at Molineux in February, they've won 10 of 15 Premier League games. Only Man City have won more points during that sequence as well. So they are in good winning form. I'm not being overly convinced by the full rounded performances, but that doesn't really matter at this stage of the season. They have got a puncher's chance now of the top 4, so I expect them to be right on it. And I just think stylistically this suits them massively. Leicester have to come out and start playing. They have to try and attack Liverpool, and that's going to leave that defence very vulnerable. A defence that hasn't kept a clean sheet since the World Cup, 20 games and counting. Horrifying defensive efforts in the last 2 games. They've conceded 28 shots in the box against Fulham and Everton, 4.75 expected goals. Over the last 6 Premier League games, they're averaging 18 shots against. That's a huge concern against a team like Liverpool. 8 defeats from 8 against the top 5, 16 defeats in 24 against the top 12, 1 clean sheet in those 24 games as well. And I just think, being 2 points from safety, games running out, you just can't afford to be defensive and be pragmatic here. You have to play on the front foot. And Leicester do have the quality in 4 areas. We say it every week. And actually, their attacking numbers have been pretty strong recently. They've averaged an XG of 2 or more in all 5 of their fixtures, 2.65 on average in those 5 games. They're attempting at least 8 shots in the box in all 5. Vardy, Barnes, Maddison all look sharp. But yeah, unfortunately, the back end is absolutely horrendous. So I can only see this game being high scoring, entertaining, but you'd always back Liverpool to come out on top in those kind of situations. So yeah, being quite aggressive again, just because of the way in which both teams are set up and the way in which both teams almost need the points for differing reasons. I still think Leicester can hurt Liverpool with those players in forward areas. A Liverpool defence that's kept only 4 clean sheets away all season. But I think the boost on Liverpool, who are pretty short to win the game, aren't they? 162. The handicap's at 1, which is, again, quite tight. So boost the price on Liverpool to win to 2.94 by including both teams to score.
Okay, again, I'm going to be a sucker for the bigger price here. I'm going to lock in Liverpool both teams to score as the podcast selection, alongside Arsenal both teams to score 3.25, and Newcastle, I think 3.3 on both teams to score. You've got yourself a nice treble, which you can do on Matchbook, and one of the only betting exchanges you can do your multiples, and add in Adrian's Everton plus 1.5 goal. You might not go too far wrong of a big payout there. But insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' selections put up in each game, plus all the EFL action that's going to come to you now. And Mark, we'll go to you first because Adrian's got a couple of selections. Bolton versus Barnsley. Now, for selling the playoffs, I'm guessing this may not be the game to completely sell it for the neutral if they're going to go on expecting goals galore.
Well, the playoffs isn't always about goals. I think the first
Drama,
legs, the first legs are traditionally tight affairs because the must not lose element quite often kind of overweighs and overbears. It's edgy, it's nervous. These teams who get this far, they're good teams, and they're not sort of scrappers down the bottom end. They know the way about a football pitch, in both boxes. And I think here, I did some research last year on first leg EFL playoffs going back to the year 2000, and I think it only averages about 2 goals per game, which is higher than I actually expected it to be. But I think you're looking at about 65-68% success rate if you back the unders. And League One especially has been quite, pretty goal shy, shall we say, in the first legs. If you go back to 98-99, there's been 48 first legs. 35 of those went under 2.5 goals, which is 73%, and 40% went under 1.5 goals. And I'm just not anticipating this game escalating into anything too dramatic. Bolton are quite process driven, like to keep things pretty tight, pretty controlled under Ian Evatt. They are quite possession heavy too. They played out the season with 10 successive League One games going under 2.5 goals. I think there'll be a game plan just to stay in this tie, but also look to be the aggressors. And I think for Barnsley, who are always kind of traditionally strong at Oakwell, I think they'll be coming into this fixture saying, a draw in the pocket wouldn't be the worst result, a narrow defeat wouldn't be too bad, a win by a low scoring margin would be brilliant. They'll fancy their chances in the return leg. So, not anticipating too much adventure from both these two teams. So just surprised considering all the sort of overwhelming long-term statistics on first leg ties for under 2.5 goals was trading close to 1.8. I think whenever you see a price like that in the playoffs in the first leg, you have to sort of get involved almost. It's almost religion. So, it won't be the most fun watch. It never is, but I normally just back overs and unders, I should say, and BTDS knows across the board when I can and the prices allow, and I think this one definitely does.
Okay, yes. I'm starting playoff stats there from Mark O'Haire. Under 2.5 goals, Bolton Barnsley 1.82 currently on Matchbook. Adrian, over to you. Championship, you mentioned this game already. Coventry versus Middlesbrough. Talk us through your thought process here and how the game's going to go.
Yeah, I was at the game the other day, and it became a bit of a non-event second half. I think that both teams set for the fact that they might play one another in this semi-final, and there weren't a lot of chances created. I think Coventry looked the more dangerous through Gyökeres up front throughout the game, but they've got Akpom and Archer Middlesbrough. But I've watched the last 2 Middlesbrough matches, Flesh at Rotherham and against Coventry, and I wasn't massively blown away by them. I think that they have hit a flat spot. They play some lovely football, but they've not been carving out brilliant numbers of chances, not quality chances anyway. And as Mark said, this is all about staying in the tie. Back to the other side, level or, narrow defeat or a narrow win. I think that's the only way I can see this panning out, really. When you get matches where you play one another in quick succession, I think that drives down the goals normally as well, because that familiarity just leads you to be more aware of where the dangers are. Borough, for example, will certainly have more of a game plan or a better game plan for handling Gyökeres they did the other day at the Riverside. So I think it's going to be tight. Coventry are solid, especially at home. 20 clean sheets, by the way, this season for Coventry, for their keeper, Ben Wilson. Brilliant achievement. But in big matches at the CBS Arena, against the top 9 rather. So there's 8 matches there. They've conceded 3 goals, Coventry. His opponents have turned up at their stadium. They've either kept clean sheets or given 1 goal max. And that's turning out. I think it could be 0-0 or 1-0 either way. That's how I see this game panning out. So for me, to see both teams to score no at 1.97, a little bit like Mark's price with the unders there, it's like, I think it's one you've got to take. I think there's every chance that one or both teams won't score here.
Okay, Coventry versus Mill. Yes, Mark.
Little stat for you. I know it's probably not going to be too helpful for the playoffs, but I was astonished by this doing my prep for the playoffs. Across the whole of the EFL, only one team has kept fewer away clean sheets than Middlesbrough. In the whole of the EFL, they've kept 1 clean sheet on their travels. Forest Green Rovers didn't keep a clean sheet away from home in League One, and they finished bottom of the pile by a long stretch. Incredible, really.
Yeah.
There you go. One of Middlesbrough could be in the Premier League next year. Coventry versus Middlesbrough, both teams to score now 1.97. And Adrian, your second selection here, I'm fascinated with this. This is the second League One playoff game, but just for viewers that haven't been up to date with League One all year, Sheffield United came third in League One, 5 points off winning the championship, or winning the League One, let alone getting the 2 points extra for automatic promotion. Is this coming into your thinking for this bet? Because it must be so hard to chase a goal all year and then reset that in less than a week.
It's so harsh, honestly, to get the points tally that Sheffield Wednesday had and to have to go through the playoffs. It must be such a blow to them. And look, like last year, they ended up in the playoffs. Something similar happened, and they didn't show up against Sunderland. Obviously, we look what's happened to top end championship this season. So yeah, there'll be real frustration that they've got to play the game. A tough one, because if you look over the last 10 matches in League One, Peterborough best behind Ipswich and Plymouth. So they've been really, really good under Darren Ferguson. They did beat Sheffield at home in the regular season 2-0. And Wednesday aren't, for a side with points, their away record against the best teams in the league isn't good. They've won 1 of 5, finished in the top 6. That one was at Bolton. And get this, they conceded 2 or more in 4 of those 5 games. So, when put under pressure on the road, Sheffield have not been as good as you would imagine, given the number of points they accrued over the course of the season. So yeah, they finished the campaign okay, Sheffield Wednesday. Peterborough slightly better. They've got Clark Harris. They've got Ephron Mason Clark. These are 2 possible match winners. I think it's going to be hard. Really think it's going to be hard for the Owls to take a lead away from this first leg. So when I saw the odds and I saw that you could get Peterborough draw no bet at even money, I'm happy with that, because I think that is a more than fair price. I actually, in my own head, make them slight favourites to win the game. So, yeah, that's my selection here. Look, they are hit and miss, Peterborough. You can't really trust them, but they have beaten Sheffield Wednesday. They've beaten Plymouth at home. They've beaten Derby at home, Pompey at home. So they're hot. They can beat anyone in the division. And I expect them to be absolutely pumped up for this one. So, yeah, Posh, draw no bet, please.
Posh draw no bet, Posh plus 0.0, available at even money on Matchbook. There's 2 separate markets for that, draw no bet and plus 0.0, but it is the same bet. Mark, 2 selections. We're going to call this in any other bet section. You have one from the Premier League and one from Europe. So take it away on your Premier League selection here. I watched the game Southampton against Nottingham Forest. It was carnage from start to finish. It was always going to be set up like that. Southampton at times played the better football, but they just couldn't seem to defend really. And I guess all that thinking is what you're thinking here with the goals angle.
Yeah, I mean, it's driven by price. I'm really kind of confused why the market is making over and unders at basically a 50-50 shot between the two. I have to be with overs at the prices. Southampton probably know that they're down now. There's no chance they're going to survive, even if mathematically it says they might. They can't have any complaints. They're winless since early March, 7 defeats in 10, 2 wins at St Mary's all season. Quite overwhelming numbers really suggest that they do deserve to go down. But yeah, I was quite impressed by their effort at Nottingham Forest. They had 19 shots and generated 2.45 non-penalty expected goals at the City Ground. Only Man United have bettered that tally away at Forest this season. And, I thought they were slightly unfortunate not to get anything out of the game. And I don't think the players will completely down tools, because they are at St Mary's and they are quite a young squad. So there'll be a lot of those players in that team considering their futures. Are they going to get another move to a Premier League club? They'll be eager to impress, I think. And I think they will give it another last hurrah, if you like, whilst mathematically survival is still open for them. I think they have been okay in some matches recently. They showed real intent from the off against Newcastle before game state dictated things there. Obviously, they matched at Arsenal. Everyone remembers quite well. They scored against Man City at home. They scored 3 against Spurs here not so long ago. So I think they can get on the score sheet at the very least. But Fulham have proven they're not on the beach. They were very competitive. Quite unfortunate to lose actually against City and Liverpool recently, but they let their frustration out on Leicester, didn't they? Scoring those 5 goals, Leicester defending horrifically. But Mitrovic is back this weekend as well, so that will only aid their prospects here. So you look at this game, I can't see either team keeping a clean sheet, but at the same time, you could easily see Fulham covering this line themselves if Southampton do pack it in early doors as well. And Fulham's record against the lesser lights is very strong. 8 wins and 1 draw from their 9 fixtures down against bottom 5 teams, scoring twice or more in 7 of those. They've beaten both Everton and Leeds lately, 3-1 and 2-1. So I'm anticipating something similar. I think this might have a bit of an end of season flavour about it as well. And Fulham are without a clean sheet in 11. Southampton just the 1 clean sheet at home. We're in the month of May now, and if you exclude COVID times, this is the highest scoring month for Premier League football by quite a distance as well. The goals per game output always takes a hike at this time of the season. 2.95 goals per game on average in May, going back to 2014. We've already had 15 games in May. We've had 47 goals and an average of 3.13. So quite happy just to play the averages, and just kind of considering where both teams are at right now, I'm finding it very hard to sort of understand why the market suggests this game could go under. More than happy to go over.
Okay, yeah.
This was I was very close to putting this in as my best bet. So yeah, I'm in total agreement.
Endorsed by Adrian Clarke, and it'll be endorsed by me, considering I sat and watched all 3 games on Monday. Lucky me, 7 goals average Monday. Incredible. One of the all-time Premier League days. Really was just insane. Mark, second selection here. Europe, Serie A, Bologna versus Roma here. You're signing with Bologna.
Yeah, I'll keep this quick. Jose Mourinho and Roma are prioritising the Europa League. They're in the middle of 2 ties against Bayer Leverkusen, which is investing all their focus. They rested major players last weekend, even though they hosted Inter in a big game at the Olympico. Dybala and Tammy Abraham were left on the bench. Lost that match 2-0. They're now 5 points off the top 4. So Champions League qualification looks most likely through the Europa League. But also Mourinho, he's a bit pig-headed, isn't he? He loves his European trophies. He's got that tattoo, only coach in the world to win all 3 European titles. He's eager to get another under his belt as well. And look, Roma's form domestically has been off colour for a while. Just 5 defeats in 11, 4 wins in that sequence, 2 wins in 9 on their travels since November as well. Bologna is a tough place to go. They've lost 4 games in the last 17 in Serie A. 3 of those came away. They've only lost 3 times at home all season, and they really get up for the big games against the big teams. 1 defeat in 7 when hosting top half opposition, and only 1 opposition side has scored twice or more at the Renato Dell'Ara this season as well. So quite happy to get Bologna onside as big underdogs. You can get them plus a quarter goal at 185. You get paid out profit basically if they avoid defeat. A full stakes winner if they win the game. Couldn't be having Roma at the prices.
Yeah, Asian handicap selection there for Mark. Check out the Asian handicaps on Matchbook Betting Exchange. Very competitively prices versus all the sports books. Adrian, we'll go to you because we just spoke about the Fulham Southampton game. So this section has turned from a long shot section into Matchbook Zero. For those that aren't aware, Matchbook Zero, for those small stakes punter that wants to have a bet up to £20, we have prices built in on Matchbook Zero that have 0% margin and 0% commission. You can bet up to £20 on any of the major leagues in the win, draw, away market. So for you, Adrian, it's Fulham to beat Southampton. So for anyone looking for that bet up to £20, you feel Fulham are the value here on Matchbook Zero.
I do, yeah. I think the price. I think you're up against a side that are pretty. They are doomed, and I think it wouldn't touch for everyone to turn on the team, on the manager in this match, especially if Fulham start quickly, and that kind of is their way. They're very front foot, aren't they? Under Marco Silva, really like the way they take the game to the opposition. I mean, they had a little bit of a flat spot not so long ago, but it feels to me as if they're finding their form again. Mitrovic returning will certainly elevate them. Their away form, the 5 of the 6 have won away from home, have been against the bottom half. And in games, Fulham scored 3 goals. So they are more than capable of going to St Mary's and going bang, 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 3-0 or whatever, 3-1, 3-2, and win the game and covering that goal line themselves that Mark was talking about in that previous bet. So you think, yeah, Southampton kind of have to go for it, and I think that will leave the door open for to expose them. Look, they scored 5 against Leicester last weekend. I think they can areas as well. So yeah, I just think at the price, it's appealing.
Okay, Fulham 2.62 for anyone looking for a fun bet up to £20 on Matchbook Zero, and because the 0% margin and the 0% commission, the back and the lay prices are the same price, and Chelsea are priced up. Will be priced up because these markets are priced up 48 hours before the event on Matchbook Zero. Chelsea will be around 1.52. And Mark, that's a price you're willing to take on at home to Forest.
Yeah, I'm just adopting a similar approach as last week when we laid Salford a stupidly short price against Gillingham. The beauty of laying is you don't need your underdog to actually win the game. You're basically backing them in the double chance market here in just a different way form and a different sort of staking strategy. But I think Chelsea at 152 is probably the worst price in the Premier League this weekend. I know Forest have horrendous away from home with 13 defeats and 17. But I think if you look at some of those games most recently individually, they've not been as bad as the results have suggested. I don't think they're too far away from picking up a point here and there against some of these opponents. Conceded 2 late goals versus Brentford, including one in stoppage time to lose that game. Really rattled Liverpool at times at Anfield. At Villa and Leeds, they started strongly, but they sort of fell apart late on. So, I don't know, 152 on a Chelsea team who, only the bottom 6 have won fewer games this season. Only 2 sides have scored fewer goals. Only 5 sides have collected fewer home points. 152, a team who's won 5 games in 25 going back to mid-October. I mean, they weren't even that impressive despite winning at Bournemouth last week. So
it's Forest away though, Mark.
I don't care. It's Chelsea at home. I'm treating Chelsea just like Forest away these days. Just hopeless. But they might well sort of get their act together towards the end of the campaign now. But I'm happy to go against them, against a team who are sort of fighting for their lives. I really don't think Forest have been as bad as the results suggest. So I'm going to give them a bit of a leg up here and probably be made to look silly come Sunday.
If Mark laid Chelsea at 1.52 at home to Forest on the opening day of this season, Mark, I don't know if we'd ask you back the following week. It's amazing how far Chelsea have fallen despite that win last week. So Mark is happy to take them on 1.52 on Matchbook 0. You can back or lay at the same prices. Podcast best bets. Adrian, we'll hand over to you for a final playoff selection here. And this is your strongest bet of the week. And you mentioned a few bets that were close to making the cut here. So why did you go for Luton?
Some of the numbers are quite overwhelming. I mean, Luton come into the playoffs in really good form. Long run. They rested almost all of their strongest 11 at the weekend as well to the game. Really fresh. Sunderland obviously had to win, had to go to Preston and hope for us to favour. So they went full strength and they're pretty depleted anyway, Sunderland at the moment. Basically got no centre-backs fit. I don't know if it's going to be the case for the first leg or not, but as it stands, they don't have a centre back. They're playing midfielders and fullbacks in the centre half positions, and Luton are really good up top, and they got 2 big guys, Adebayo and Morris, and they're up against 2 non-centre halves. I think they can cause a lot of for some of those numbers. Then they've lost once, Luton Town, away to a top 10 side this season. So that's 9 matches away from home. They've lost once. And in those 9 games, they've conceded a grand total of 6 goals. They're unbelievably solid. A lot of draws in there, loads of draws, but they don't give a lot away. Flip it around to Sunderland. How do they get on against the better teams, against the tops this season? 1 win out of 10. So again, they've seen off the teams in the lower reaches. Those around them, they don't have a strong record at all. Sunderland. So when you think about those numbers, think about the 2 up front for Luton, think about how solid Luton are on the road. I think there's every chance they get a draw here or even win the game, Luton Town. So I looked at Luton draw no bet, but I want to earn some money off this if it does end in a draw. I think quite likely. So even though it's a short price, Luton plus a quarter goal gets us a profit, providing Sunderland don't win the game. And as I've outlined, I think there's a real strong prospect Sunderland don't win this match. So that's the reason it's my best bet.
Okay, best bet Luton plus a quarter of a goal, 173. We have a question here, just what does lay mean? So basically lay is the opposite of back, and it's effectively saying something won't happen. So if Mark lays Chelsea at 1.52, he's saying Chelsea will not win the game and Forest will get a draw or win, and that's when he will get paid out on that. There's actually a great playlist we have on our YouTube channel. Check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange YouTube channel. It's called, the playlist is called Exchange Education. It's about 4th down. Well, we're checking out a lot of good terms of the exchange and explaining how they all work. And with Matchbook 0, this is sort of a middle ground between a sports book and those that haven't gone to the full exchange yet. It just gives you a bit of a practice almost for backing the lane. Up to £20 is fun to do. Well, we're checking out matchbook.com/0. Final selection, Mark. We've saved the best to last, I hope. Podcast best bets. Belgium football. A rare foray on this podcast anyway to Belgium. So take it away.
Yeah, so Belgium's season is quite weird, but it basically splits at a certain stage when both teams have played home and away. The top 4 go into the championship playoffs, basically a round-robin tournament. They have their regular season points tallies halved, and then anything they earn in the playoffs is kind of added to it, and then you get your champion at the end of the season. So we're 2 weeks into the playoffs. So there's 6 matches in total. It's incredibly tight at the top. Antwerp, who are the Cup winners already lead the way, but Genk and Union Saint-Gilloise are just 1 point behind them. Now, Genk and Saint-Gilloise face off this Sunday, so massive match at the top. And I think it's pretty likely we see a decent goal tally in this match because both teams are incredibly front foot. The Belgium top flight has been great fun, great entertainment in terms of goals all season anyhow. And these two are certainly towards the top end of that. Both regular season meetings ended 2-1. The two teams have each seen 71% of their regular season matches go over 2.5. They failed to score in just 5 of those 68 matches, and 3 of their 4 combined playoff matches have already seen overs and BTTS Cop already. Now, if you look at their records against the best teams, 12 of Saint-Gilloise's 14 against the top 8 saw BTTS, 11 of Genk's 14 against the same opposition saw BTTS. In 32 combined games against the teams inside the playoffs, as well as the top end of the Belgian regular season, these two have scored in 29 of 32, but kept 3 clean sheets between them. 66% of those fixtures ended with over 2.5 and BTTS copping. Average goals per game, 3.41. Average XG, well over 3 as well. So more than happy to support the goals in this game. The goal lines are quite tight, but if you back over 2 3/4 goals, just shy of 1.9, you make money if there's 3 goals or more. Full stakes payout if there's 4 goals or more. So happy to get with the goals when Saint-Gilloise host Genk on Sunday.
Okay, over 2 3/4 goals, 1.89. Mark, final question on that Belgian league format. Are you a fan? Would something like that in the Premier League be just utter carnage?
No, I'm not a fan. I hate it, but I have to say it's a million times better than what Belgium used to do, where you literally, even if you're Einstein, you'd have trouble working out what the hell was going on towards the end of the season. Honestly, it was bonkers. So they've simplified things in the last couple of years. But yeah, still not a fan.
Wow. There you go. Mark's take on the... I'll have to look up that old format after the podcast. But thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate your help. And there is a link in the description now in the podcast feed and the YouTube video to check out, to vote for the SBC Betting Club Awards. And we much appreciate the vote. We're nominated for 4 categories that we mentioned at the start, and any vote is much appreciated, as well as a vote for Mark O'Haire too, as I'll speak on behalf of him and said he will appreciate the vote there too. So my thanks to Mark and Adrian for getting nominated for the podcast and for their help towards the year. We'll be back on Monday with Champions League podcast alongside Miguel Delaney. So well worth checking that out. Until then, check out Matchbook Insights on the weekend. Enjoy the weekend. If you're having a bet responsibly. Until then, chat Monday. Bye-bye.